Hello and welcome to episode 30 of series 2 of the Engaging Internal Comms podcast. This is the show for employee engagers and internal communicators who like to keep up to date with all that is new in our profession. My name's Craig Smith from The Big Picture People. This is the final interview episode of the second series of the Engaging Internal Comms podcast. But fear not, we'll be back in a fortnight's time and we're going to be bringing you a new style of interview show while we wait for the third series to come out, which we're hoping it's going to be coming out in January. We'll keep you fully informed about that. If you're not already on our mailing list, by the way, that will be a good way to find out when the third series is about to be released. So you can sign up to our mailing list at engagingic.com. But in between this episode and the beginning of the third series, we're going to be putting out some shorter magazine-style episodes, which are basically compilations from previous episodes, interviews. We're going to be putting together few different perspectives from different interviewees on similar topics. And the first topic we're going to be looking at, which we'll look at in the next episode on the 7th of December, which is when it's due to go out. We're going to be looking at hybrid working and organizational change communications. So we're going to be looking at all of the challenges that we've faced over the pandemic with hybrid working and how that links into organizational change and how we as internal communicators and employee engagers can be better tuned in to this whole transformation agenda that we're working on. Not just hybrid and pandemic related stuff, but also transformational stuff within our organizations, which we are invariably going to be getting involved in more of in the future if we're not already getting involved with a lot now. So that's what we're going to be doing. We've got at least two of those shorter compilation episodes that we'll have in December. And as I say, we're looking to start the third series of the podcast in January. Now, on that topic, we're looking for interviewees for the third series. The third series of the podcast is going to be based around one of our own frameworks, or one of our own models, which basically looks at the 6 key questions that our employees ask, want to know, need us to help communicate to them, answers which relate to the business and the organization's general direction from a big picture perspective. So we're going to be sharing that framework with you during these episodes, and in each episode we will be making reference to a specific part of it. So we're looking for anyone who has a story to tell about transformation within their organization and the role that employee communications and employee engagement has played in that, and particularly your role or the role of your team within that. So if you've got a story that you'd like to share with our audience and bring that to a broader audience and tell us all about the work that you've been doing, that would be absolutely fantastic. We'd love to speak to you. You can get in touch with us via our sign-up form on the website, which I've already mentioned, but is engagingic.com. If you go there, you'll see a form where you can get in touch with us and let us know who you are, what you're interested in talking about, and we will arrange a preliminary chat with you. Failing that, you can drop us an email at info@thebigpicturepeople.co.uk, and also just tell us that you're interested in being an interviewee on the podcast, and let us know a little bit more about who you are, what your topic is, and we will get in touch with you to arrange a chat prior to an interview recording itself. So that would be wonderful if you are interested. And if you know of anybody else who you think would make a great interviewee, then please obviously let them know, but then feel free to nominate them to us as well. So that's about the end of this series of the podcast and the start of the new one. Just one other thing I wanted to make you aware of before we go on to today's interview. We are running another one of our free events on the 2nd of December 2021 at 3 p.m. UK time. It's a webinar. It's a free webinar. You can sign up for that via our website. So if you go to thebigpicturepeople.co.uk and go to our events page, you will see the first event on the top of there is called Transforming Health and Safety Communications and Training. So this is an event where we're going to be looking at how we can make our health and safety communication and training more engaging, less compliance related, and a lot more involving for our participants, and something that's likely to make more behavioral impact within our organization. So if that sounds of interest to you or any of your colleagues, as I say, you can go across to our website where you can book directly via Zoom, and we will put you into our registration system and you'll get a notification of reminders for when the webinar is. You can find out some more information there there as well. And if you want to forward that on to anyone who maybe that's more their thing, or is something that's is more related to their work, either inside or outside your organization, you're more than welcome to do so. So as I said, go to thebigpicturepeople.co.uk, go to our events tab, and the first event you see listed there will be the one that I've just been talking about. So that's enough of me. Over to today's interviewee. At the end of Series 1 of the Engaging Internal Comms podcast, we had an episode where we looked back over the previous year, which was 2020, and looked forward to 2021, which is obviously the year we're in now. And that was an opportunity for us to reflect on what we'd learned from 2020, which was mainly dominated, obviously, by the pandemic, and then also looking into 2021, which we knew would probably be similarly dominated by the aftermath or the remainder of the pandemic. So we wanted to do something similar at the end of Series 2, which is obviously where we're getting to now, where we look back over 2021, review what are some of the lessons that we've taken from 2021, and also then looking into 2022. And obviously we're looking at this from a professional internal comms and employee engagement perspective. What are some of the things that we can anticipate will be on our agendas in 2022, and that we as professionals will need to be leading and leaning into going forward. And I took the opportunity to get back the guest that we'd had at the end of Series 1, who'd helped us to walk through that, and was very fortunate to be able to get her to come back to do the similar exercise for us, to do a similar interview in this episode, looking back over 2021 and looking into 2022 from a professional perspective. So I think you'll find this a really insightful interview. My guest today is Jennifer Sproul, who needs no introduction to many of you. Jen has been Chief Executive at the Institute of Internal Communication since 2016. For those of you who don't know, the IOIC is the only independent professional body solely dedicated to promoting a deeper understanding of internal communication. Before that, Jen worked at Market Research Society and in a number of senior marketing and comms roles. Jen is leading the IOIC in probably the most uncertain periods for the profession, and also in business terms as well. And Jen is also the co-presenter of the IOIC's own podcast, that is called Internal Communication in the Raw. And it's a welcome back, Jen, because this is the second time you've been on the show. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you for having me back, Craig. Yeah, I'm doing really well. Like many, very, very busy and lots going on. But honestly, I can't complain in comparison to the year that we had last year.
Yes, absolutely. And you kind of concluded, it was the sort of penultimate episode, the last proper episode of our last series at the end of last year. So it's nice to be having you at the end of this. And this is going to be going out. I know we're recording this a few weeks in advance. This is going to going out in the sort of depths of 2021, right towards the end of the year, as we wrap up our second series of the show. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to sort of, we might become a regular feature, Jen. Every year we get you to kind of recap the year the year we've had and the year we're looking forward to. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And you're still in Milton Keynes. You've not moved during lockdown.
Still in Milton Keynes, still in the town of roundabouts. Keeping me dizzy, cows, I would say.
Keeping you dizzy. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Anyway, as I said, we spoke at the end of last year, which is 2020. And I had a listen back to that episode this morning because I thought I'd refresh myself on what we talked about, and actually it was very insightful, because a lot of the things we talked about, I'm not saying we're kind of Nostradamus like, but we seem to have a finger on the pulse anyway, and you certainly did. And we talked about a number of things that had come out of last year, which was 2020, which is that IC definitely earned its place at the table, really kind of stepped forward and was being countered when it was most needed, and that obviously we'd seen some massive seismic shifts in the use of technology, how we work, and a huge increase in things like awareness of mental health and empathy and authentic leadership, all of those sort of things. So that was really good. We'd look back on 2020 and we kind of recap that. But then looking into 2021, we got our crystal balls out, and like with the benefit of hindsight, I thought it would be useful just to maybe go back and look at what are some of those things that we kind of did come to pass over the last year, and then some of the things that kind of, you know, maybe we just didn't get started on, or, you know, for whatever reason. And I'm kind of looking at this both from a professional point of view and also from the Institute's perspective as well. So just very briefly, a kind of headline: well, what sort of year have you had? What do you think sort of year of the Institute had, and also what sort of year do you think IC has had, looking back over the 2021 as a sort of the year of the sort of coming out of the pandemic, I guess it'll be known as.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thanks for that, Craig. And that recap's really handy because, as we all know, I think it's going at such a pace. Sometimes you forget where you were and where you said you were going to. And so it's always really handy to have that recap.
Yeah.
In terms of 2021, you know, from an Institute perspective, first of all, you know, we have still lived, as you know, in sort of that turbulent time. We have, obviously, we talked about the return of face-to-face, which we have seen towards the end of the year and things like that. But from an Institute perspective, it's been a really good year for us. Much better than if I sat here with my crystal ball at the end of last year with, you know, a bit more nervous trepidation about the year ahead, you know, and obviously with my responsibilities to run the Institute and keep it healthy and keep it growing and all those obligations. And it's actually been a far better year than I had anticipated.
Excellent.
Certainly we have seen membership grow fantastically, which I think is just testament to the things that we talked about at the end of last year. We have a lot that we're dealing with. We have a lot of need to come together as a community. We need help in our skills and our development and understanding how to, for us, make sense of the challenges that are ahead of us. So from that perspective, as an institute, it has been a really good year. We continue to run that sort of virtual world, but we are stepping back into that, as I said, face-to-face arena, which has been wonderful. And to see people come together again has been just amazing because you can feel that palpable need in the air. And that's something that I've really taken away from this year as well. When I physically got together with people, it was just amazing. And I think it just shows you the power of people and the power of community. And those are the things we talked about that we wanted to do more of this year. And I think that certainly felt more evident in what we've done. And
in terms of the increase in membership, I mean, what have you pinned that down? Have you kind of got any feeling for why that is? I mean, obviously it's fantastic that the membership is growing. Is that really because increased awareness, or do you think it's because a lot of the people who maybe were not members but were involved in IC last year have kind of recognized that actually, you know, I need to up my game here. I need to kind of professionalize what I do and find out more, get more best practice, that sort of thing. What do you think's driven that growth in membership, Jen?
I think it's a real combination of all of those things. I think from one side, I think there has been certainly a need when we're overwhelmed with challenges and things that we need to make sense of. You need to find your tribe, for want of a better phrase, and find those places. But also you need trusted sources. And you know, people that those organizations like us, that yes, we are here to help advance the practice, to make sense, to provide skills, to provide professional development, but we're also here to provide credibility. And I think that that's something that as a professional community, we want more of, because we have finally got that awareness. So I think there's been an absolute drive amongst our community to seek that further credibility. And we talk a lot of it about the professionalization agenda. About, you know, there are standards and skills and activities that we need to adhere to, and actually being part of an organization that validates that is really important to us. So I think that that's been a big drive. But I think also as well, just because there is so much going on, we need to up our learning. We need to keep our finger on the trends. We need to keep involving ourselves in dialogue and community and keep sharing. And we've tried to do more of those things this year. Yes, a lot of that virtually as well, but things like we've launched huddles where people are dealing with specific challenges. So just to bring together a group of like-minded professionals across a range of sectors to go, I've got this challenge. How's it going for you? What are you doing? What does that look like? So I think there's been a need for that, the dialogue in the community, but also that drive towards professionalization and a credibility that organizations like the IOIC kind of stand out as the thing that they can provide. Because that's the very reason for our being.
Yeah, I agree. I think we found that with you, because obviously, you know, with the local chapter that we're involved in, we found that where we've had most not, I wouldn't say most people attending, because I guess it's not a case of like, more people have signed up for it, but where we've run events where it's just actually just been, it's been a kind of open mic almost. People have kind of brought an issue, and we've kind of kicked it around amongst a kind of community of people there who've turned up for that meeting. We found that the people have found those more interesting and useful than where we've kind of set up a guest speaker. I'm talking about online still here. Yeah. So I think there is a genuine need just to, like you say, I like your analogy, kind of find your community, find your club, find the people who are having similar issues to you, and find out how they're dealing with them, and also get that reassurance and validation that, oh, I did that thing, and yeah, it was the right thing to have done. But without having that network around you within your own organization, sometimes it can be a bit lonely, can't it? So I think that's really important.
We're not meant for isolation. We're just not, as social creatures in our DNA, in our makeup. We're not meant for isolation.
Yeah,
we're not meant to figure things out on our own. We're not meant to. We need to just express and to converse and to challenge. That's really important. We talked as well, at the end of last year about the focus on well-being. And yes, there's been a focus on well-being in what we're doing to support our people in our organizations, but there's also a need to focus on our own well-being as a profession. And organizations and communities can really help you deal with that, because if you sit at home in isolation thinking, I don't understand this. What's that challenge? How do I overcome that? But the minute you have a dialogue and you share that with somebody, it changes the way you feel.
It
does.
Not
necessarily walk away with the answer, but you'll certainly feel lighter than when you walked into the conversation.
Yeah, just articulating it to someone who gets it, I think it can change your own frame without them even saying anything. It's it's the kind of coaching paradox, isn't it? That often a good coach just doesn't say anything; they just listen. I know a big thing this year, and I've spoken to a few people about this. We've had a couple of interviews. I had Kirsty Bowen on this recently, talking about the I Choose IC campaign, which I know has been a big focus this year, and I've heard a lot about it. How's that gone? As a I know it's been a difficult really time to have launched. Yeah, it's
gone really well. And this is, you go back to the mantra of why organisations like us exist, and this has been, I guess, it's a big passion project of ours. But it's the intangible of why we exist, because one thing that we have certainly found when we talk about this professionalization agenda is that we have, as a community, we need to do more to attract a pipeline of talent and diverse talent. We need to have a pipeline and a community of people coming forward from a range of learnings, disciplines, ethnicities, experiences, characteristics. But one thing that I think as a profession we need to get a lot better at is creating those opportunities for people to enter the profession. Something we've certainly noticed as an institute, we have a lot of sort of manager up levels, people that fall into, as we talk a lot about the profession. And through I Choose IC, what we've actively done is reached out to a variety of universities, and it has gone incredibly well. And through our ambassador program, we have been able to put in front of more diverse talent a range of passionate advocates to explain what a career in internal communication can look like and what that means. So suddenly these amazing students are suddenly going, well, maybe I should consider that, rather than find it 5-10 years on. So from that point of view, and we've run things like we worked with, I think it was Loughborough University, where we're doing lots of stuff around business challenge weeks. So we're working with universities to on initiatives where they're sort of doing challenges for students, and they're presenting their thinking to a group of senior IC members. So it's really helping them to learn and understand the excitement that exists. And also, we're not just talking to comms graduates, we're talking to a wide range of graduates. And I've done a few sessions myself, and to walk away with more people going, I'd never thought about that as a career of choice. Now I will. I think it leads us on to our next challenge, though, one that we'll take into 2022, and one I think as a profession we need to work harder at. We've done our hiring guide this year, is to think about how we're standardizing job descriptions and actually creating that sense of progression and pathway in the profession. But I think taking that into 2022, there is more work to be done on creating those opportunities. Well, we're looking at how we can work on internship programs so that we can get that talent in, and that's something we need to work on.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, because that's a
Mm.
nice sort of pivot into 2022 then, and what some of the big challenges are. So let's start with that, and then maybe pick out what you see as some of the things that you anticipate that the both the institute and also the profession are going to be coming to terms with, helping to address and wrestling with over the next 12 months. So just do you want to expand on what you were just saying there then, Jen, about the
no, absolutely. So it's going to be something I think that's continuous. I Choose I See doesn't have an end point.
No.
It will go on forever and ever, and we hope so, because it's really important that we attract that talent. But going into next year, we also need to think about our responsibilities in regards to things like social mobility. So one of our plans into next year is, yes, we have focused largely in 2021 on those undergraduates in degree programs. But what more can we do with school leavers? How can we get into schools to actually, and then create opportunities for those people to join the profession where perhaps they don't have financial access to qualifications or to study? So one of the things in 2022 we want to do more work on is, and it will be small steps. It's never going to be a giant leap, and it will take time, and it will take persistence. It will take consistency, and it will take years. But in terms of our focus for next year is to, first of all, think about what we're doing to talk to school leavers.
Yeah.
Then the other element we're looking at is how can we work with our members and put conversations with them to think about how they're creating the opportunities for those individuals.
Right.
So whether that would be things like, we're looking at an internship directory. So, what organizations are offering work placement versus, work experience versus internships. But also we will also, of course, fundamental to that is making sure that we have that based on a good set of standards, and that we advocate for good ethical programs for those people. Where that will take us after that is then continuing to campaign, I think, within our community about what's that hiring process, what's that career pathway look like within our profession. Many others have we can go off into specialisms. Do we have specialisms? Do we have starter to mid to senior? Do we have routes that people can go off to? How are we creating that pathway and that pipeline? And there is progress being made all the time. But I still feel there's a lot more progress to do, because that, in essence, drives us towards becoming a bigger professional community of good, diverse talent.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So that's for us a really big agenda next year.
I can see, I can hear, I can imagine. As you say, I think I Choose I See being a kind of a kind of a long-term mission that will always be, there'll always be something you can do to make it to drive that is a sort of insightful way, and not just seeing it as a sort of short-term campaign.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. So what else in 2022 then? Maybe some more kind of, not that they're not practical, they're very practical things, but some more maybe kind of nuts and bolts things that you envisage will be some challenges that the profession will need to lean into in 2022.
Yes, I mean, I think another thing that we've talked a lot about this year, we'll continue to talk about, as we say, next year, it is the future of internal communication. What I think are fundamental challenges, we've come out of a pandemic. Well, you could say we are still in a pandemic, but we're coming back to that sense of normality and trying to make sense of that, and trying to see where our opportunities as a profession exist. And I've had many fascinating conversations, and we've produced reports and podcast episodes ourselves to think about these things, about, well, what are those opportunities? What is the future remit, if you like, of our profession, and how do we rise to that? We know we're dealing with hybrid working. You might call it flexible working, whatever terminology works for you. We know we're dealing with pace. Pace is a real challenge. We know we're dealing with burnout, well-being challenges. We also know that we can't go back to less human, empathetic and authentic style communication and leadership. And I think some of the things that we've really uncovered this year that we need to work through next year is this idea of, actually, what is the future? The future is community. The future is collaboration. The future is innovation. And how do we create great organizations, great cultural organizations that retain, grow their talent, drive the innovation, the productivity, the talent, the attraction, the retention, and there is a lot that we need to make sense of. So it's thinking, and I think the challenge this year has been there isn't necessarily a complete answer as to how. We just know that actually we need to look at things from a center of the opportunity about being actually communication. It should be a sideline to leadership. If you communicate, you lead. That's the fundamental.
Yeah.
And that is a great opportunity for our profession. And now we have this ear next to us where perhaps, yes, the finance director is there, but now they're looking to their comms going, because if you can't not afford to get this right.
Yeah.
And the power of how we say and what we say is really important.
Yeah.
So I think for us next year is trying to think about, well, we know community, we know change management, and change is changing, emergent change. We know how we facilitate the ways of working and the ways of communicating in a hybrid organization with different preferences, different styles, as well as working in a very pressurized societal and economic environment.
Yeah.
The economics are challenging, but the societal pressures are challenging. Doing the right thing is paramount to an organization's success. So I think that we know all those things. So as we look to next year, it's like, well, we need to keep talking about this. We need to keep trialing and erroring together. And where we can as an institute, let's make sure we provide best practice advice where we have it. Or if not, at least continue that community involvement. So we want to do more next year to reflect on what we've talked about this year and try and then, I guess, evidence that in action. And actually implication of, well, how do we do things differently as a consequence of that? Whether that's through guides, conversations, continual talking. Those are the things that we need to make more sense of as a profession next year. And at IOIC, we want to do more to enable that. We know listening is important, for example. We know leadership and line management is important, for example. So we'll keep going on those issues, but keep trying to drive us to a point of going, what have we learnt? How did that go? How can we do it differently? So we feel like it's not just talking around a topic, we're learning as we go, and let's try and facilitate that learning.
Yeah, we had an interview recently that's gone out, which was with and I was going to talk to you about this after we'd finished recording today, actually, but not the interview, but I spoke with Mark Dollins and John Stemmel from the US, and they've just written a book called Engaging Employees Through Strategic Communication, and we had a really interesting conversation around change management as a capability that internal communicators need to embrace and really be good at as well, not just at kind of good with technology, good with sort of copywriting and journalistic skills and that sort of thing, and creating great content. Really need to understand the psychology of change and how, as comms people, we play a massively integral role in that. And he came up with a really interesting statement, which was, if a rising executive within an organization doesn't have a positive experience with an internal communicator by the time they get to director level, basically you've lost them, and their focus will be mainly on external things rather than people and internal. And I just thought that was a really interesting kind of thought, because that really bears out with my experience as well, with the kind of people who were really good at kind of understanding the psychology of people and change had that exposure at an early stage, either through line management or they kind of got, whereas the people who'd kind of been isolated from that and had kind of lived in a bit of a bubble and maybe been kind of very, very, their career was very much based on technical skills rather than people. And I think that's a really key role that we have as internal communicators, who actually recognize that our part of our role is to recruit our senior leaders to be advocates for what we do, rather than just assuming that they kind of get it, because I don't think they always do.
Absolutely. And I think that's a fascinating thing. And I think this thing around change, I had a conversation, we've been talking a lot, and that's something we're working on actually as a guidance material for next year, is change management as a discipline. We need to understand it. But one of the things I often say is we can't think of it as a Gantt chart.
No.
And that's sometimes where we get it wrong, because we sort of go, well, somebody somewhere else at leadership, they make decisions. They come up with change, then they tell us what the change is, and then we've just got to inform people of the change and drive that behavior. What we're gonna see really different over the coming years, and this is this thing about businesses needing to keep up with pace and innovation, and be agility. This agility issue is going to be really, really key. Is this theory of emergent change, and actually that's born into good listening. And that should be something as a skill base that we absolutely dial up, because emergent change is, rather than waiting for somebody over the top who perhaps doesn't know the detail of the organization or the problems in the organization, because when you get so large, you don't. Actually, how are we enabling emergent change to come from the ground up? And that's going to have to happen through listening, through dialogue, through human understanding. And actually, therefore, there's the opportunity for the internal communicators to become drivers of change, not implementers of change.
Absolutely. And and just to be clear, when I think change management is sometimes, as you're right, it kind of, it's Prince 2 and Gantt charts and PERT charts and all that sort of thing, which is useful. But
absolutely,
I think absolutely, we were coming at it from the perspective of, like ADCAR, so awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, reinforcement, and really very much from a kind of human perspective of making sure that people know why we're changing, feel as though they've got some skin in the game, feel as though, a sense of urgency to do something differently, rather than just, we're doing it for cost saving, or we need to do another reorg. You guys just need to sort of go along with it. We need to start from a human perspective, and internal communicators, I think, are good at that, but they need to champion that more vociferously, I think, when they're involved in those sorts of projects.
I agree.
Okay, great. So we've got the kind of continuing professionalization agenda. We've got the kind of, the whole overall competency and capability agenda that we need to be really kind of being mindful of. I mean, one of the things that we've probably done it to death a little bit to a certain extent, but the whole kind of way of working and how we're going to be working, and I think we've all kind of, hybrid is the kind of thing that everybody talks about, but nobody's got a consistent definition of it, and there's all sorts of inherent paradoxes, I think, about well, we'll come into the office to do when we need to do all the collaborative stuff, and then we'll work from home when we just do the stuff we can do solo, without recognizing that actually that means you need some sort of coordination around when I don't want to do my collaborative stuff on a Monday morning, I want to do it on a Wednesday afternoon, and so how are you going to come into the office when I'm in the office, or so there's some very practical things there from a management perspective, but from a communications perspective, I mean, what do you see from an internal communicator perspective? Obviously, what do you perceive there are some of the challenges and things that we need to be kind of tuning into and helping organizations to try and solve?
I think we can't underestimate the impact of digital communication, positively and negatively, and there are both. And that's something that, as a profession, we need to wrestle with and understand and make sense of, to come up with the best solutions or best ways forward for our organizations. I think that, on a positive note, yes, we have instilled trust. Yes, we have instilled people are going, well, actually, if you treat me fairly and let me work how I want to work and where I want to work, I'm going to commit to you. I'm going to give you my best because you're being fair to me. So there's kind of that kind of, I guess, new employment contract, should we say, that's seeing that really positively. And yes, the other positive from a digital communication point of view is connectivity. Yeah, because we can connect with anybody, anytime, anywhere in the world. We have overcome that sort of accessibility piece. Or actually, if there is a problem or something needs to be talked about, or we need to have open dialogue, we can go, right, going on to a live session, I'm here, let's talk about it. And you can do that instantaneously almost. So there is, and actually having that closeness. So leaders now can be, to some degree, closer, because you can engage in continuous dialogue. You haven't got to wait for the next physical event to keep the conversation going, or to be tuning in or at the water cooler. So there is many positives in that point of connectivity and accessibility, and also that point of pace and timing. Yeah. So we don't let, when a message hasn't landed, we can deal with that straight away, so it doesn't fester and become something different or more challenging. Yeah. But on the other negative side of things, I certainly am hearing it a lot in the profession, is everyone's really worried about, they're saying engagement is dropping, and you can deem engagement under whatever term is right for you. Some people might mean that as a click through. Some people might take that from their employee surveys or just the general feeling of the organization. I think we are also dealing with challenges around presenteeism. I think we're dealing with new habits that some people don't appreciate. And we mustn't let them fester. We've got too much to do, so I'll listen into you, but I'll work at the same time. So how does that feel for the person that's presenting?
Yeah.
And how does it also feel when you're in the physical and you're at home, and what's fair and what's not fair? Or how are we using digital communications to make sure the voices of the extroverts and the introverts are being heard? Because we all have different preference styles. We also have the other negative impact of overload of content.
Yeah.
We are in an information overload, and we're sometimes, I think, struggling to cut through in our messages, in our channels, because we're trying to understand. And I think there is the challenge of square peg round hole sometimes. We've had these platforms, these channels, and these ways of working. We're not going to ditch them. We're just going to try and make them work in the new world. But are they really working in the new world? And do we need to reimagine our design process? But also, I think that the impact of digital on relationships. And I think that also from an L&D perspective, exposure is really important. You take the 70-20-10 rule.
Yeah.
We've taken away, for those people joining in, that sense of exposure, that sense of listening and understanding and being tapped in. I'm certainly finding it. We are losing our sense of empathy for each other because we can't see what each other is dealing with. So as a community of professionals, we have a lot of positives to engage with, but we must be really mindful of those negatives and what they're doing to the way people feel, interact, learn, develop, progress, and come together as a community. Because community, I'm going to go back to that word, is really important, and go back to that point of view. We are social creatures. So how are we enabling that? But you've got that backdrop of people that some want and some that don't. And like I said earlier, I don't have the answer of how you deal with that right now, but we need to, as a community, work through that more and more together. So we think about how we design into our new world, and where sometimes the round peg and the square hole, we need to abandon that and think with a fresh perspective.
Yeah, and I think if we're not already involved in those conversations, we need to get our elbows out and make sure we are, because I think there's a danger that it's HR, it's kind of it's senior exec decision, but we need to be kind of I don't want to sound like sort of militant, but we need to be the sort of spokespeople for the employees to make sure that we have our finger on the pulse and we can represent and also express some of these trends. I totally agree with. I think you absolutely spot on there in terms of the things that the pros and the cons of this whole sort of new working environment that we're in.
Yeah.
So what's the just to kind of wrap up your biggest hope, and that's a really difficult question to answer, but if there's to like narrow it down to one thing, but if there was one thing, if we were to hopefully we'll record this at the end of 22, beginning of 2023. That's a frightening thought. But if we were, if you could sort of we nailed one thing, for you, what would good look like from that perspective?
I think from a good perspective, in terms of, I'm going to go with the feeling piece, is that sense of pride. We feel pride as a community because we've not in danger of reacting, but we have really taken away thought, become solution bearers, or become people that are okay with trial and error and learning and advising. And so I hope by the end of 2022, we'll have more answers. We'll have more evidence of what works and what doesn't, because it takes time to go through these processes. And we'll have more lessons learned that we can put forward. But I hope that what we have done, I guess, as a profession, is feel really proud, but actually understood that we can go into that organization with a sense of confidence and a sense of influence and impact to kind of catch things and make sure things are done right. But if they're not done right, to make sure we acknowledge that and learn from those experiences, because there's a lot on our plate. And I think we have a lot of opportunity. So I guess my word would be just pride.
Fantastic. Well, that's brilliant, Jen. Well, thank you very much. And, I think what I've taken from that is that there's a lot to be optimistic for. I think it sounds like, the Institute and the profession are in a great shape and in good hands. And I think, we do play a leading role in sort of coming out of this. And I won't use all the kind of cliches, the building back better and all that sort of thing. But I do think we do have a kind of key role to play in that. And I think I really appreciate the insights that you've shared with us there. I'm going to spring you with this is the first person who I've sprung this question on twice. So I know that I asked the first time we spoke last year, you shared your kind of your expertise in everything related to asbestos. No, you said you'd worked in the asbestos industry very early in your career.
I did, yeah.
Which was a kind of an interesting one, because we found we had a common denominator there, which was hard hats and rigger boots. We both kind of had careers that involved that in the early stages, which is completely unrelated to what we do now. So I'm gonna put you under pressure, Jen, for another something else we didn't know about you. And I'm talking about kind of people who know you quite well. Obviously, people listening to this podcast who've hearing you for the first time probably don't know a lot about you, but even people who know you well, what have you got for us this time?
Oh gosh, the people that know me well, let's hope we never get them on a podcast, because that could be dangerous. I think I am a pretty straight up, as we've talked about, this is an open, real person. I think the things that you probably don't know is I'm incredibly silly.
Right.
A very silly sense of humor.
I am as well, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm probably a bit of a goof with my friends, if that's a word that you can use.
Right.
And probably I would say I have an obsession with interior design and thrillers and murder mysteries, which I think has become my lockdown love, that I can't seem to shake. So you'll find me being really silly, then going and trying to buy lots of paint samples, and then ending the day with some kind of thriller murder mystery obsession with police programs.
Interesting behavioral pattern. I wonder what a psychologist would make of that.
Make of that what you will.
Yeah. We've all got. I can. I like the silliness. I like all of them. I share your love of silliness, so that'll be interesting. We'll have to. Hopefully, at one of these events next year, we'll be able to kind of share some silliness. Have some laughs in the bar after the event or something like that.
Yeah, belly laughs change everything.
Oh, they do. Yeah, we my wife were reflecting on some stuff the other day, and there was a lot to be kind of somber about, and we just burst out laughing, and it was just because it was just so preposterous the situation we found ourselves in. But anyway, well, look, that is absolutely wonderful, Jen. You shared 3 for the price, and next we're gonna have to really struggle next time to find something. You're giving us 4 now, 4 things. We've got 3 this time. So no, that's been brilliant. I'll do what I did last time, which is put a link to the IOIC if anyone is looking to find out more about IOIC. I'll also put a link into your podcast. I'll put a link into your own LinkedIn profile as well. Is there anything else that sort of you want me to share that we can put into the show notes?
I think everything you want to know about us is there's lots of resources and things on the website. Have a tune into websites, to our podcast, and if anybody ever wants to get in touch or has any queries, LinkedIn me.
Fantastic. Definitely, Jen, and that's brilliant, and I really appreciate you giving up your time on behalf of our listeners, because I know you're really, really busy at the moment, and it's huge value, and really, really appreciated. So thanks a lot, Jen, and take care, and all the best for the rest of this year, and obviously for 2022.
And you too, Craig. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jen. So thank you for listening to Engaging Internal Comms. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts about the show and any questions, ideas or feedback that you'd have. Anything you'd like us to cover on future episodes too, please. So you can email us at info@thebigpicturepeople.co.uk, or you can get in touch with us via the contact form at engagingic.com. You can also sign up to our mailing list there, and we'll send you relevant news about the show and anything that we think you might be interested in when it comes to internal communications and employee engagement. If you like the show and you haven't already done so, please subscribe to it directly via your podcast service. And you can also subscribe via the links on our podcast page, which again is engagingic.com. If you like the show, we'd be really grateful if you could leave us a review, and also if you could leave some verbal feedback there as well, not just stars. That's always nice to know that we've been appreciated, and particularly how we've helped you. If you know anyone else who might like the show or might benefit from it, please tell them, please share it with them. Please share the link to our website, engagingic.com. And that would be great, because we want to grow our community. We want to get as many people involved in the show as possible. And the bigger, the better. Okay, thank you.